Music and innovative British guitar legend, 7-time Grammy Award winner, and 2-time inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Jeff Beck, has passed following a sudden illness. He was 78 years old. On behalf of his family, it is with deep and profound sadness that we share the news of Jeff Beck's passing. After suddenly contracting bacterial meningitis, he peacefully passed away yesterday, his family said in a statement posted Wednesday on Twitter. His family asked for privacy while they process this tremendous loss, the statement concluded. He was born in Surrey, England in 1944, where he became fascinated with the electric guitar at age 6 after hearing Les Paul's How High the Moon on the radio. During and after his stint as a student in Wimbledon College of Art, he played with bands such as Screaming Lord Sutch and the Savages in 1962. He joined the popular group The Yardbirds, replacing Eric Clapton in 1965, embellishing their hits with an unprecedented use of feedback, sustain, and fuzz. At the time, he was joined by another legendary guitarist, Jimmy Page, who later went on to form Led Zeppelin. Beck was fired during a U.S. tour for being a consistent no-show who also had difficulties with perfectionism and an explosive temper. During the 20-month stint with the band, he recorded most of their top 40 hits, including Over, Under, Sideways, Down, Heart Full of Soul, The Shape of Things, and For Your Love. He formed the Jeff Beck Group in January 1967. The lineup endured several shakeups, but ultimately included Rod Stewart on vocals, Ronnie Wood on bass, Nicky Hopkins on piano, and Ainsley Dunbar on drums. Beck disbanded the group the night before Woodstock 1969, a move he later regretted. The group reformed in 1970 with a different lineup. In the 70s, he also recorded with bassist Tim Bogert and drummer Carmen Appice. He released an impressive collection of solo albums that showcased a fusion of various styles, such as jazz and funk, with heavier guitar rock in a one-of-a-kind style. Blow by Blow and Wired were recorded in the 70s and There and Back in 1980. He appeared on stage with David Bowie to perform Jean Genie, which was recorded and never released. He appeared with friend Eric Clapton at the Secret Policeman's Ball, which was a benefit for Amnesty International. In 1985, Beck released Flash, featuring a variety of vocalists, but most notably former bandmate Rod Stewart on a rendition of Curtis Mayfield's People Get Ready, released as a single with the music video that got a lot of airplay on MTV. His other numerous collaborations throughout his career include sessions with singer-writer Donovan in the 60s. In the 70s, he recorded with Stevie Wonder, Billy Preston, Stanley Clarke, the Jan Hammer Group, and the Bee Gees, and Peter Frampton in the soundtrack of the movie Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. In the 80s, he played on albums of Mick Jagger and Malcolm McLaren and the Bootzilla Orchestra, singles from Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind & Fire, Diana Ross, Tina Turner's smash Private Dancer, and rejoined bandmate Rod Stewart on the hit single Infatuation. In the 90s, he recorded with B.B. King, ex-Pink Floyd Roger Waters, Kate Bush, Buddy Guy, Seal, jazz guitarist John McLaughlin, Spinal Tap, John Bon Jovi, Brian May of Queen, ZZ Top, and The Pretenders. After 2000, he joined operatic giant Pavarotti, Tom Jones, Joe Cocker, Leanne Rimes, Wynonna, Morrissey, Cyndi Lauper, Suzi Quatro, and Josh Stone. He also recorded with Jerry Lee Lewis at this time. He recorded a new track with his reformed Yardbirds and played in movie soundtracks. Beck was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the Yardbirds in 1992 and as a solo artist in 2009. He scored 6 Best Rock Instrumental Performance Grammys, 1 Best Pop Instrumental Performance Award, and another Grammy for Best Pop Collaboration with Vocals, which was the Imagine Project with Herbie Hancock and others. Beck and Johnny Depp recently completed a tour in support of their 2022 album 18. Rolling Stone placed Beck at number 5 on its list of the 100 greatest guitarists in 2015. And here are the tributes. I can't express how saddened I am to hear of Jeff Beck's passing. Ozzy Osbourne tweeted, What a terrible loss for his family, friends, and his many fans. It was such an honor to have known Jeff and an incredible honor to have had him play on my most recent album, Patient Number 9, Long Live Jeff Beck. Heartbreaking news to report the late, great Jeff Beck has sadly passed, coming from KISS singer-bassist Gene Simmons. No one played guitar like Jeff. Please get a hold of the first 2 Jeff Beck group albums and behold greatness, R.I.P. Devastated to hear of the sudden and tragic death of legendary guitarist Jeff Beck. He was loved by everyone in the know, the guitarist's guitarist. My condolences to his family and friends, R.I.P. British musician Paul Young wrote. I was shocked to hear the very sad news of Jeff Beck's passing. Jeff was such a nice person and an outstanding, iconic, genius guitar player. Tony Iommi, founding member and guitarist for Black Sabbath, said, "There will never be another Jeff Beck. His playing was very special and distinctively brilliant. He will be missed. R.I.P. Jeff." Brian May of Queen said Jeff was completely and utterly unique and the kind of musician that is impossible to define. I was absolutely in awe of him. Mick Jagger said, music had lost one of the best guitar players in the world and a wonderful man. Former bandmate Rod Stewart said Jeff Beck was on a different world. He was one of the few guitarists who would listen to me sing and respond when we played live together. Jeff, my man, you were the best. We appreciate everything. Along with Les Paul, Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, and Stevie Ray Vaughan, he truly was one of the greatest. This is Dan, Nowman, Niswander.
I mean, when you're sort of 11 and you hear this, like...
Goodness gracious, there's a whole lot of shaking going on. Hello, everyone. This is Niswander. I'd already done some content on the Nowman Show and in blogs. I did get acquainted with him in the 90s. A friend of mine was his road manager. So I think I formally met him backstage at the Forum. And it was Art LeBeau might have been there that night, I think. It was an oldies concert, and he and Little Richard were the headliners. And I don't know if they had to flip a coin or what they had to do, but they got the longest sets, I think, of the night. Bo Diddley was there. So my time with Jerry was kind of limited because my friend was involved with him in business, and I spent more time actually with the band. The time that I really got to talk to him more was in Indianapolis, Indiana. I was invited to stay in the suite that my friend had rented out for him and Jerry at the hotel. So I arrived at the hotel very shortly before Tim and Jerry arrived in a limousine. Jerry remembered talking to me, and I told him I was a preacher's son, and I was wearing a leather jacket. He was wearing a leather jacket, and he said to me, "I thought you said you was a preacher." And I said, "Preacher's son, Jerry, it's different." And he, "Oh yeah." That night, I had walked the band from the backstage area to the stage. I don't know why I was late getting to the storage area at the hotel there. They had all the band's gear and my stuff and everything was put into a storage area, like so it had its own personal place once they checked out of the hotel rooms. And so I went to get my stuff, and the people at the hotel there in Indianapolis said, "Oh, everything was just taken with the entourage to the airport." And of course, they flew back to Memphis. And I thought, uh-oh. Well, fortunately, I knew that I was going to be going to Memphis in about 4 to 6 weeks to participate in a surprise party basically for Jerry Lee Lewis, his 60th birthday, and also to celebrate his 40th year in show business. So I knew I was going to be going to Memphis, and I would just get my stuff then. And I had a bag, standard stuff in it, clothing items and, toiletries and things like that. And then I had a hanging bag, to wear a suit. I think I had a couple of suits, actually. One of them was this one. In Memphis, I stayed at the Peabody Hotel. That's where the concert was. And it was like I said, a surprise party. He just thought it was a regular gig that he was doing basically in his hometown, or what had become his hometown. At the show, I was backstage, and I was the youngest guy there, seemed to me. And at one point, there were people standing around talking, and I realized, hey, this is Sam Phillips. This is the DJ from the radio station that played all the Sun record recordings, starting from the very first one, Elvis, That's All Right, Mama. There was the drummer of Bill Haley and the Comets. There was Jerry Lee's sister, Gail. There was Chris Christopherson, who flown there from Hawaii. He was working on a movie in Hawaii, and he flew there just to be there for that occasion. And they're all talking like about the old days, in Memphis and Sun Records and Jerry Lee, and I was just, wow. I was just like, wow. I didn't even know what I could add to the conversation. It was just great to hear them, talking. Obviously, they all haven't been together in a while, obviously, and it was just interesting to be there and to capture all of that. And then when the show started, of course, I escorted the band from the backstage area to the stage, and I stood at the back of the stage.
Jerry, I've never done this before, but I have to do it tonight. We're having to stop the show because we got a big surprise for you, Jerry. You don't know what's going to happen. You think it's a concert, but it's not. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your life, Mr. Jerry Lee.
I was actually standing behind James Burton. He was the person I probably talked to the most in the band. And he, of course, is a guitar legend himself. He played with Elvis, at the end of his career in the 60s. And he was one of the Wrecking Crew guitarists. I saw how he responded to Jerry. He didn't know what Jerry was going to play next, but he could just kind of tell, maybe from the first few chords, what Jerry was playing, what the song was. So these guys, James Burton, Kenny Lovelace, they just have so many songs in their head, because of all the gigs for so many years, right? Who knows how many songs that Jerry Lee has in his head. And of course, people came and sang songs with him. Chris Christopherson actually sat at the piano with Jerry, and they did Me and Bobby McGee, which of course Chris Christopherson wrote. Jerry had recorded that, as well as Janis Joplin and many other people. It was a great night, but for the most part, I was there, working with the Jerry Lee Lewis entourage, and I did go to Sun Records Cafe. Didn't go to the studio tour, but I did eat lunch one day at the Sun Records Cafe. And I did walk down Beale Street one day, went into the Five and Dime store that Elvis probably went into. This was Sunday morning, actually. B.B. King's nightclub. They had gospel Sundays there on Sunday morning, the gospel music in the bar. So we checked that out for a moment. This is a picture, actually, here of me and Jerry. Backstage at the Peabody Hotel. I was left with the rent-a-car, and nobody really told me how to get to the Lewis Ranch. So here I have all this memorabilia from the evening, right, loaded into the car, and I've got to go to the Lewis Ranch. Fortunately, people up there at the hotel gave me some pretty good directions. And when I finally got there, I saw that there was a pond, and there was a really large wooded area next, and then there's a house. And 20 to 30 dogs or whatever started coming out of the woods. And
coming towards me. I had nice Dockers on. And I mean, there were dog prints all over them. Quite an experience. And when I got into the house, I walked through the back door and a little family was there and everybody just kind of laughed. Jerry Lee was in his room. He's a very private person when he's home. He has his own room with a piano in it, a chair and for reading and that kind of thing. I didn't see that. That's the one room of the house I didn't see. And that's where he was. And he didn't come out to greet anybody because there was that particular day. I was there twice. So that particular day, that was not the first time I was there. It was the second time I was there. And families laughed when they saw all the dog paw marks on my legs. And like they said, we see you met the dogs. So that was quite an experience. I'll never forget that. And the first time that I actually went to the ranch, when I first arrived there, there was a party or a gathering of the Jerry Lee Lewis International Fan Club. So there were quite a few people there, at least outside, and they were serving food and all this kind of stuff. And again, Jerry was very private. He stayed in his room. And so his wife was kind of, doing all the hospitality and all that kind of stuff for the guests. And and that's when we first arrived in Memphis, or at least when I first arrived in Memphis, and James Burton recognized me. He came up to me and he said, "Did you get your stuff?" And then I said, well, I got my clothes bag, or the bag with the, not the hanging bag, but the general bag with my stuff, other clothes and toiletries and things like that in it. And I didn't get the hanging bag with this in it. And essentially, Jerry's wife said to me that your hanging bag came to the ranch. And Jerry Lee he took out this coat and he put it on and he said, "Hey, I think this fits me. And I'm going to keep this." And his wife said, "No, you are not going to keep that. That's not yours." There was a really nice white piano. I didn't play it. I'm only pretending to play it. Met Jerry Lee Lewis III. And he was quite the computer, was already a very young kid. So thank you. And all my love to the family and to all of his friends who worked with him and loved him.
Hello, this is Dan Nowman Niswander, and I am here at the family home of the Van Halens here in Pasadena, California. Very modest looking home here behind me, and it is turning into a shrine. It's definitely a national landmark. And of course, many are all around the world are coming here to mourn the death of guitarist Eddie Van Halen. And it's interesting to me that he had such humble beginnings and very modest house. Van Halen started in the garage behind, and they went to school here in Pasadena. The Van Halens went to Pasadena High School. David Lee Roth went to Muir High School. And there's a pretty funny picture actually in the lobby of the high school on the alumni wall when you first walk in the front door. I have to say that. But the Van Halen brothers also went to Pasadena City College, which is right down the street here. So they probably walked to school. Their mother is from Indonesia and their father is from the Netherlands. So they came here as immigrants. They didn't speak English. Amazing story, very humble story, humble beginnings. Their mother insisted that the brothers learn how to play music, be trained, because their father was obviously professionally trained. And so they went to Pasadena City College, and I have some personal experience having worked there. So I could easily imagine the two brothers being there at the music school, hanging out in the quad, that kind of thing. One time I was in Truncas Market parking lot. I was actually boogie boarding with a friend. We were in Malibu that particular day, and he went into the store, and I stayed in the car. And on the other side of where we were parked in the parking lot, there was a Cherokee Jeep, and Eddie, and I believe it was Sammy Hagar's son, came out of the store and got into the Jeep and drove off. But I smiled at Eddie. He smiled back, and I think I might have waved at him. I was on the passenger side, and they were on the other side, parked next to our car. So I have those stories.
There's a little memorial here to Eddie Van Halen, not too far from the family home where he lived.
That ain't it. I didn't even run it. Oh, no.
Carved into wet cement in front of Eric's box. This is the liquor store where the band would come in and get their stuff before they went back home to practice here on Allen Avenue. Still here.
Band dramas are not unusual, and certainly Van Halen is no exception. Those of us who are fans of music as well and follow certain bands, we are familiar with certain stories associated with our favorite bands. We all know the Beatles. Well, those who follow the Beatles more intensely know about Yoko Ono always hanging out in the studio, and the issues George Harrison had trying to get more of his songs in the band. And then, of course, the Paul is Dead thing on the Abbey Road cover with the bare feet, and like the rumors that he had died, or what's really going on. What's the difference between the fact and the fiction? It's not always clear, and it's used for marketing purposes as well, to sell product, right? So it's nothing unusual. In the case of Van Halen, we know about the issues with David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar, and there's questions about, did they quit? Were they fired? But I can confirm a fact actually associated with one of those dramas. When David Lee Roth left the band, apparently Eddie Van Halen was pretty bummed out about it, and he had to bring his Lamborghini for repairs here. This place is now out of business, but it's been here as recent as the 2000s. It was called Pilates, and they would service high-end foreign automobiles. And he brought his Lamborghini here. Somebody at Pilates could tell he was kind of bummed out. Something was different, and Eddie said that, yeah, my singer just left the band, as in David Lee Roth. And somebody said, well, Sammy Hagar is a customer here. Why don't you call Sammy Hagar and invite him into the band or something, And so apparently the phone call could have happened here, but the exchange of that information did happen here. Even Sammy Hagar has confirmed that that's how they met, was basically through a connection at Pilates. So it's always interesting to get actual stories and to be on location to tell you the stories. And of course, this is Pilates in Pasadena, California. Had to come here and pay tribute, and to think of the amazing guitar work of Eddie, and just the brilliance of how he built his original guitar. He became friends with Les Paul, and you can just see the two of them nerding out on being innovative in building things, as well as experimenting with different ways to record and make incredible sounds with guitar. So many wonderful stories are coming in. A documentary is being made So I had to come here and pay tribute to Eddie, since long overdue. And of course, the music lives on forever, and many people were impacted by his work on Michael Jackson's Beat It, which was actually Michael Jackson's biggest hit. And that had a lot to do with the sound of Eddie Van Halen's guitar on that song. So this is Niswander from the family home of Eddie Van Halen and also his brother Alex. Stay present in the moment, always.
That's right. Thank you, senor. Was it me? No. He's so cool. But I think he's going through something right now. Of course.
All these records related Sunset Station and a lot of the Sunset Boulevard and shit. What a sound! This is what Ted Templeman produced, and we're paying tribute. This is the Van Halen family home right here, and we can't get enough of these stories because from humble beginnings, they obviously dreamed really big. So guess what? Dreams big. Exactly. Yeah, I know. I know a lot of bands, and there's a million players in their bedrooms dreaming about that. Maybe the right place, right time, and he just went for it. That's what he wanted to do. Plus, I seen Rob talking to him, and Rob don't be quiet, so he's just like looking at Rob and Eddie, what we have done it? He goes, "This is all I know to do." And that's all we do. Yeah, that was the combination of everybody in that band, including Michael Anthony. Oh, good background vocal.
Thank you for checking out my tributes to Jeff Beck, Eddie Van Halen, also the legendary killer Jerry Lee Lewis. And there are more online on the Niswander and the Nowman Show on the Aurora channel on YouTube. You'll see Lisa Marie Presley, David Crosby, David Bowie, and so much more, and celebrations of life and other topics as well. This is Dan, Nowman Niswander. Always stay present in the moment. Now.
'Cause she knows I treat her right through the day and through the night. That's a scheme. She came to scream her usual routine. A dream come true, I'll satisfy it too, know what I mean? A dream come true, I'll satisfy it too, know what I mean?